Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's G here. Thanks so much for joining me, and I want to welcome my new subscribers, so thanks guys. Someone had asked me in one of my story times to talk about, I think it was giving birth here in Italy or the medical experience, or maybe it was raising kids, but I think I'm going to talk about all of those things. So today I'm going to talk about a little comparison because I've had a kid in the United States and I had two kids here in Italy, and actually those experiences were very, very different. Not just the experience in the United States, but even the two experiences I had here in Italy with the medical system. So guys, subscribe to my channel and I'm going to tell you a little story. So I think it's interesting because, you know, healthcare here in Italy is free for the most part. Like, you get to go through the public system. There are paid aspects of it for certain tests and things like that, but you are never really going to rack up the same kind of expenses you would in the United States having children, probably in most places in Europe or most places in the rest of the world. So I think this is a good comparison because when I had my son in the United States, I was young and I was able to qualify for public health care. So I was getting free medical care when I was in the United States and free medical care here. Of course, it's a big time difference, but it actually, you know, I don't think it really matters when I think back. The time period difference doesn't really matter. So first of all, some of the major differences I think that was shocking to me was that the doctor that you see here in Italy, the doctor that you see who kind of follows you through your pregnancy, does not deliver your baby. Like when you go to the hospital, like when I went to the hospital in the States, like that guy who I saw, eventually he showed up to catch the baby. Even though the nurses and everything else were pretty much there doing all of the labor, he showed up when it was time to actually get the baby out to catch him, right? That's really all he did, but he showed up, right? So there was that continual kind of care, and you know, you saw him after whatever in the hospital. So that doesn't really happen here. So the doctors that follow you during your pregnancy don't really, at least in my experience, they don't show up at the hospital. They don't get contacted or anything like that. A midwife or someone who's there on call is who's going to help you through and deliver your baby. Now, that was one of the things I think, like when I first had my first son, I was like, oh, so this is kind of weird. I'm just going and like whoever is there is going to help deliver my baby. And the very first person who helped deliver my first son here was the best. Like, honestly, she was so kind, so gentle. And I mean, at the time, like I was just starting to speak Italian. Like I wasn't really comfortable speaking any Italian. So I mean, kind of during the pregnancy is when I started trying to learn Italian. So, you know, like that was about 4 years ago, but that was kind of when I started learning. So I was like, all of these insecurities, like not being able to speak the language. And one of the things that was so, I think, scary was that when I went into labor and I was there, first of all, they broke my water. Like I went into the hospital and I don't know, like that was technically really having like strong contractions. He came 10 days early, so it wasn't like it was the due date or anything like that. But when I was having pain and some strange like cramping, really not pain, like cramping is what it was. And so the doctor told me to go to the hospital. And so like they were monitoring me, and there's not a lot of privacy. Okay, so in the States, like you had a private suite. I mean, even with my public healthcare, I had a really nice really nice hospital room. And it did feel like a hotel because I was in there, like my family, like there was couches and it was like a suite, right? And so I was in there the whole time, and you know, like my family and friends were coming and all of that. And so here though, it's like none of that, even before COVID, because I had my first son before COVID. So when I first got to the hospital and they broke my water, I was not expecting to go into labor, to be honest. Like I wasn't expecting. So I'm in there, they're monitoring me. And when they went to examine me, I'm not sure why, but all of a sudden I just felt wet. And I was like, what was that? And they were like, oh, that was your water. And I felt pressure, so I know they broke it. And I couldn't really verbalize anything, like, what are you doing, when I felt the pressure? Like, I didn't know what to say. I was just kind of like, is this part of this thing? Like, I had never had this experience, so I was just kind of like, you know, I don't know if this was right or wrong or exactly what happened, because my first son, the water broke spontaneously. And so I wasn't, you know, I didn't know what to expect from this situation. And so yeah, they broke my water and they're like, okay, you're going up to labor and delivery. And I was kind of like, what? And so like, you know, my partner's waiting for me, his family's there in the waiting room, because like, we were thinking I was going home, to be honest with you. And anyway, I go up to labor and delivery, but I wasn't having active contractions really. So they put me in a room with another person. It was like nighttime, and they sent my partner home. They sent my baby daddy, they like go. And so I was like freaking out, because I was like, what? Like now I'm here by myself in a dark room with this other woman, like just here. And I was like not sure what was supposed to happen next, and I was really nervous. I couldn't really relax. And all of a sudden, like I just start having pains, contractions, right? So, and I wasn't even sure what to do. Like honestly, even though I had my son before, like it was all so quick. Like the water broke, I went to the hospital, I was kind of there, and they were like, you haven't had this baby yet? And they gave me something to like help the contractions come stronger, and he was out, you know? So like this waiting game and everything, I didn't know what to do. And I really wasn't sure about like the contraction part. Like even though I had a baby before, I was really unsure like about all of this stuff, because I was young, I guess, it made a difference. Like he came so quickly and it was like done. But this, I was like, are these like the contractions? Like I'm having pain, is it strong enough? Should I call them? I don't know what to do. And so when I start feeling really bad, I did like call the nurse. They came, they took me to labor and delivery. They called my partner, and he showed up. So, like quickly, luckily. So I don't know like where he went. I think he did go home. So he showed up really quickly, got there back really fast. By the time I was getting ready to be in the labor room, he was there. And so like I had an epidural, and like I didn't have an epidural when I was in the States, but I had two here, because I was like, I'm not about that life. And so like they kept saying, oh, we're gonna wait, and like I was like, give me something. Like at this point I'm in pain, I'm ready, like give me something. Oh, and that's another thing, to get an epidural, you can't do it spontaneously. So you have to before you go into labor, you have to go someplace to another doctor, and they examine you and they determine whether you're eligible or not, because you have some issues with your back or whatever, like you might not be able to do it. So luckily I would qualify, because I don't think I could have done it without it. Soldier on to those who can. I mean, I did it once, but like I said, I'm too old. I didn't know. So yeah, they finally do the epidural after like a while, and then it was like, oh, okay, I can deal with this. And this beautiful woman came in, and she was so kind and so nice, and she was like, girl, relax, I got you. And I kept saying I was scared, and she was like, what, are you scared of me? And I'm like, no, I'm scared of all of this, like I'm just scared. And so so finally, you know, she was like, honestly, she was putting warm oil on me and massaging down there, and it was lovely. Like she was the sweetest. And he came on out, and it was fine. And after though, they take you to another room and you share the room. You have to stay for like 3 days in the hospital, even like vaginal birth. You stay 3 days in the hospital and they, you know, monitor you and everything. And everyone's like, just rest, you know, which was hard for me to rest in the hospital. But either way, you stay for 3 days and it's fine, but you're sharing a room with somebody. So there's like no private room. Well, there are private rooms, you have to pay for them. So you can have a private room, you have to pay for them, but I think they're pretty expensive. I think for like 3 days, it would end up being like 5,000 or 6,000 euros to stay in a private room for like 3 or 4 days. So we weren't trying to pay that. So anyway, like shared a room, and I mean, it was fine. The person I shared the room with was nice. Now, the second birth was different, like, and I can't say that it was as pleasant. Even the experience going through with the doctor, so I had a different doctor this time because we had moved to a different apartment, and so like where I could go for a doctor had changed. So the very first doctor that I had stressed me out. Like, she was one of those doctors who didn't want to do certain tests based on her personal beliefs. And I, you know, I'm older, so I had to do some other tests, like to make sure that there were not chromosomal, you know, like developmental issues and everything like that. So the first test that I got had, it was kind of borderline. I don't know, like it wasn't saying that there was a thing, but they were saying that there was a higher risk. So I wanted to do the amnio test to be sure, right? That everything was okay. And this doctor would not write me the prescription so that I could go and have this done because she didn't believe in it. And so like this was the first problem with her. And now the other issue was like, now I gotta find another doctor because this doctor isn't doing it. And I didn't know how to do that. Like, it was very, I was unsure like how to get this done. And I'm trying to figure it out because like, you can't just, I don't know, like find another doctor so easily. So I ended up like trying to figure out finding another doctor because this woman was not working out and like she was stressing me out and she didn't want to do tests. And based on her personal like objections, right? She was just like, well, the results are like mid-tier, so you can take the risk. And I was like, but I don't want to take the risk. Like, this is my personal choice. So, and also because I was over the age, I think it's like 30 something. If you're over the age 30 something, like you qualify to have this test here, the amnio test, to make sure that there's no chromosomal issues. And she wouldn't like write me the thing. Like, I still have to get the receipt. So then I'm calling places and they were also giving me the runaround, and they're like, well, you don't have the receipt and your test is borderline, so no. So finally I was able to change doctors after I was like, y'all, this stressed me out so much. I was like in tears one day because I'm like, I just want to make sure my baby's okay, and I don't want to like honestly, I was so stressed. Like, you're already a hormonal, like all of these things, and this situation stressed me out. And everybody was like, but why are they denying you? Like, this is crazy. So I had talked to some other people, and finally I found another doctor, another place to go for my visits and the following, and it was just kind of like a standard place that you can go. And that doctor was much better, and I was able to do my amnio test and everything. And there were a few complications with the last pregnancy. Some of the tests came out weird. Not the amnio test was fine, but there were some like other scans that they did, and it was almost like they had to do other tests to make sure that I wasn't going to lose him. So obviously he's here, so it all worked out. But it was really stressful. And then when I went into labor, this was different. Water didn't break. I was at home and I started having pains. Also, he came 10 days early, but I was still unsure because of how my other 2 pregnancies went, and I was kind of like, well, my first pregnancy, it was obvious. The water broke, it was time to go to the hospital. Second one, you know, I was feeling weird, went into the hospital when, you know, kind of just to check things out. And then, you know, they broke my water and off we went. And then this last one, I was home and I was like, are these contractions? Is this what's happening? And I was trying to like time them. I was trying to do what they do on the TV and like all that. And I was just like, well, and then everyone's like, well, do you want to go to the hospital? I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to go to the hospital too early, you know, because also is early. So all that, I go to the hospital. This time they gave me the epidural right away, and they did not send my partner home. And I go straight into the labor and delivery room, and I'm waiting. And this time they were like, yeah, girl, you have all the drugs you want, which was so. But then the woman who delivered, so first there was some kind of like, I guess it's a student hospital, so there were some younger girls in there, and for whatever reason they were scared of me, and they were scared to deliver my baby. So they had to call someone else who, I guess, with more experience or something. And so this woman came in, and I don't know if she was in a hurry, she had like dinner plans or whatever, but she was like a freaking drill sergeant. She's like, Posh, in Italian, like, Posh, Posh. And I was kind of like, you know, and I'm not 100% sure, because I had issues after the birth that I did not have with the other 2 kids. And I don't know if what she did exasperated some of those issues, because she was literally pushing against me down there, trying to, you know, I guess help or something. And I was kind of like, you know, what are you doing, you know? And so it wasn't the best experience. And I do have like had residual issues after that, and I don't know if it's related. And honestly, I want to go to the States and get everything checked out, because since even the residual issues, when I've gone to the doctor, they were like, oh, we'll wait and see if anything is a problem, blah, blah, blah. And I know it's a problem, but like this, I also have kind of like in a place where I don't really trust. I haven't found anyone here, like a doctor or whatever, that I actually trust and can feel like confident in their diagnosis. So I would prefer like to go to like even my old doctor when I was in the States. So, but I don't have to pay for that. And I just got to get some money up to pay for it. But I think overall, you know, like the other thing is that you have to take all your stuff, you know, like the thing that you have your child in, like the gown, that's you got to bring that to the hospital. You got to bring your diapers, you got to bring like all of the things that you and the baby are going to need during your stay, for the birth, for everything. Like you bring that stuff with you. And so like, yeah, like diapers, all that stuff, like the whole time you're in the hospital, like they don't give you hospital gowns, they don't give like any of that sort of thing. So you bring all that stuff with you. So like you bring stuff, and like, you know, like my mother-in-law cleaned all that stuff for me. Like it was bloodied and gross and all that, and like she took it home with her and took care of all of it. And like actually it looks like I never gave birth in it. So but yeah, so that was kind of like the experience. I would say there was a little more cush to the experience in the States versus here, even though I feel like my very first, having my first son was like far more pleasant. The birthing process, I was scared, but the woman who helped deliver him was so calming and so beautiful. And that second experience was not like that at all. So it really, I guess, depends on who you get there. And I remember asking if I could request someone or whatever, and you really can't. So that's kind of like the differences in the 3 different times I've had kids. So if you guys have questions or other things or comments, definitely down there in the comments, let me know. And yeah, that's it, guys. Subscribe, and there'll be more story times. I'm going to be talking about like the difference between being a single mom and having kids with a partner, raising kids here in Italy versus the United States, my feelings about it. So subscribe and I'll talk to you in the comments. Ciao, ciao for now.